Welcome to this month's Fire Chief's video message. This month I have Eric Bernard, the Executive Director of the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association with me. Eric, welcome. Thanks. You started back in 31 a little bit of time ago, as I did. Tell us about your roles in the Montgomery County Volunteer Service as well as other elements in which you've been involved with over the years.
Good morning, Chief. Thank you for having us.
No problem.
Yes, did start with Rockville and opened up the current Station 31 first night, and been a volunteer here in the system since 1987 in December. And I became the first executive director for the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association after Bill 3603 reorganized fire and rescue, and Chief Carr became the fire chief, and Chief Hine became the division chief for volunteer services. I became the executive director, and I'll be starting my 12th year this February.
So that was back in 2003 when that transition occurred. So you've been there for 12 years. So
Yes, sir.
what is the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association? What do they do, and what's the components of MCVFRA?
Sure. The best way we describe it to new members that don't know the history here in fire and rescue is that the MCVFRA, or the association, serves as the union for volunteer members. We also advocate for the service, not just volunteers. And equally important, we work with you, we work with county government, representing the needs of volunteers and the fire service. And we're not new. This association was actually started in 1922, but it, along with our positions, was transformed in 03-04, and it became the one voice for the volunteers, where the bill in 2003 required the volunteers to coalesce with one voice. We went from different organizations, from the fire chiefs, the presidents, the Community Fire and Rescue Chief Officers Association, Fire Board, Commission, all speaking, but not with one voice. And in 03, it's probably the most effective thing that happened out of that bill was to require the volunteers to speak with one voice. So that's what the association does.
Right, and as you said, the association is the organization as it is today, but it was prior to that the Montgomery County Firefighters Rescue.
It had a few different names. It was the Firemen's Association. For a while, it didn't have volunteer in there, but it was founded in 1922,
Okay.
A couple years after the first volunteer fire department was formed in the county.
So one of the large actions and a large role and the street front recruiting center that you have on North Washington Street is recruiting. So the association has a full-time recruiter. Recently, in the last couple months, in the fall of 2015 actually, received another large grant from the United States Fire Administration for recruiting. Outline what the association does for recruiting as an organization and assisting the 19 LFRDs.
Recruiting is probably the most important thing that any service does. And for us, getting these AFG SAFER grants have been huge. So this was actually our third grant in the going on 12 years that I've been there, one of our largest. It was close to $600,000 for over 4 years, and that funds the full-time salary and benefits of our recruiter, Rick Tappan. And Rick's been with us almost 3 years now. And he works out of the street front walk-up recruiting station. And it also is the first in the nation volunteer fire and rescue recruiting station. And it's in downtown Rockville, across from the Dawson's Market at the corner of North Washington and Beale. And we open every day and many nights for people who see the signs or have some interest. And during the day or evening, they don't know if they can just go into a firehouse. And of course, with the increased security measures, it's not like we used to have the doors open and be sitting in front of the firehouse. Firehouses tend to be much more secure. So this center is for somebody to walk in the door, no experience, and just ask questions. And it's very successful for us.
And there's no doubt that stations are busy, apparatus is going up and down the street all day long. Somebody has a high likelihood of showing up at a station with an interest of participating and being nobody there.
Sure.
Coming back again later and still being nobody there. The volunteer recruiting station was quite a challenge to get established, and give us a little tidbit about the main prop inside the station.
Sure. Well, Chief Carr at the time donated to us one of the, I think it's a 90 Seagrave, and it came out of Hillendale. And we actually were able to drive it from CMF, and they had just moved there. Chief Chornock, Joe Chornock, drove it for us. And we took it to Hagerstown, where they took the cab off the frame. We were able to barter the engine. They refurbished the interior for us. And then you were instrumental in getting one of our partners in the business community, Digging and Rigging, to bring the cab on an 18-wheeler already attached to a very large forklift. We removed all the glass from the front of the building, they did, and we backed it in. This was 6 years ago, right after we had one of those massive blizzards. It was below zero, and we closed down North Washington Street, and they just, with hand motions, jiggled this this cab into this building, and it will probably be there until that building is demolished, because I don't know how we're going to get it back out.
Right. So
it is a good prop, and kids come in, families come in, and we do recruit moms and dads that didn't necessarily have the interest or didn't think they could be a volunteer. They bring their kids in to see it, turn on the lights, and say, wow, I can really do this. And so we find it is a great tool for our recruitment efforts.
Yep. Digging Rigging has long time been a supporter and an ally with MCFRS, and the Gregory family there is a great resource.
They're wonderful people.
So over the years, one of the things that we talk about on a regular basis is the career-volunteer relations. Describe to me what you've seen in the last several years and what your time frame would be for those relations between the career and volunteer folks in Montgomery County.
So I have close to 29 years as a volunteer, and we've had ebbs and flows where at the station level, most stations, there's total integration. You don't have problems. It's usually at our level where we've had some difficulties prior, but these last 3 to 5 years have been phenomenal. We haven't had major crisis, and you walk into any firehouse, you will see the career and volunteer brothers and sisters working side by side, eating together, training together. The drills, I attend a lot of drills where people from the different stations, whether there's a volunteer component there or not, are training. So I think that in my time here, the station relationships and the management relationships are at an all-time high. And I don't know that people realize how often we talk, how often we meet, and prevent problems from happening. And it's not us versus them in any way, shape, or form, us being career, volunteer, small departments, big departments, up county, down county, EMS, fire. No. We're all working together, and I think that we are at a pinnacle time in the MCFRS with relationships, with positive outcomes that we are all making, and I'm very proud to be a part of that.
So clearly the element of our organization, the 2,700 providers, and I use the word 2,700 because I take that straight off the IECS list every time I go to update the numeric, and it changes every day.
Yes.
So we're a little over 2,700 folks, career volunteer providers, plus about another 1,000 to 1,500 administrative personnel that the LFRDs utilize and receive great amount of benefits from. But it's the 2,700 people of MCFRS that are MCFRS, and thus are able to answer the 116,000. Calendar year 2015, we had 116,000, a little over, calls for service. That's almost a 3.5% increase from calendar 14. We were at a little over 112,000. So our calls are going up. Our number of transports, as an example, went up to 70,000 transports last year, above the 66,000 and some change transports the year before. So it's those calls, the heavy workload that we are engaged with, that is a part of MCFRS and is only able to be done by the integrated activities of the career and volunteer folks. And it's critical to what the services we do have throughout our 37 stations. No doubt, and what we're going to get to in the next questions or the next segments will always highlight that. So good points, and thanks for highlighting what the association is and the elements of what the RIC does and the volunteer recruiting activities. So thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So everybody comes with a question or two. What are the questions that you want to bring to the table for me today?
Well, I'd like to start by thanking you. You've been the permanent chief now a little over a year, and we also worked with you in an interim basis, and we worked with you as the ops chief. And I want to thank you for your commitment to this service. And we were talking before we got started with the taping that we both came out of 31, and we both have some time here, and we've seen some of our career and volunteer brothers and sisters really advance that came out of 31 in the Up County. So one of my questions to you is, now that you are the chief and leading these 2,700 folks, what do you think your role is to continue where we are going on this path of improving our relationships, the working together, and how we can improve the growth and keep that growth going in MCFRS without dividing us?
So, great question. We talked about it a second ago, and my job is to set the example for communication. As we strengthen those relationships, and one of my critical points that usually comes up in a discussion when we're talking or having what may be considered a conflict, or when we're trying to decide what is best in the situation, is roll back to the citizen. Roll back to, as I say, Mrs. Smith or Mr. Doe. What's the benefit of them, or how does a decision that we're talking about benefit them? And if we always put our position into what benefits them the best, we will always be able to, what may not be the decision that this person likes or that person likes, or they don't get the most of what they wanted, but the best answer will be provided to Mr. Doe or Mrs. Smith, and ultimately the service is better because our service supports the community. But the core element there is, as from the chief's chair, set the example for communications. The element there is very critical. Listening, intaking information, being open and receptive to the dialogue. While it may not be something that you're aware of or that I was aware of, it adds to the baseline of information. Be able to discuss activities. Discussion is a valuable tool, and be able to discuss versus argue, discuss versus shut down and shut off, and consider all viewpoints. The education of the issue leads to an informed decision, and frequently if we're not open to all the discussion points and the perspectives, the background, the history, or the other factors, but also we're not thinking forward and thinking what that decision may mean beyond the short term to the mid and long term future, we have to be able to consider all that when we're talking about communication. But at the same time, when you're doing communications, you have to have a good baseline. You have to have equal and equitable baselines for expectations. You talked about it, training. You talked about the capabilities of the academy and the capabilities of the folks in the stations. That's one of the core elements that is unique about MCFRS. Baseline. Everybody goes through the academy. Everybody has the same base training components. Everybody is trained to the same levels. And that is blind of our affiliation. Doesn't matter what patch is on your shoulder, doesn't matter which organization you're with, you still have the same baseline capabilities. And that's core to what MCFRS is, and it's something that everybody who is a part of MCS should be proud of, and is a benefit of our predecessors, both yours and mine, and all of our predecessors, because they established that. So the chief's role is to set the baseline, always ensure equality and equal treatment, and always ensure that our decisions are based upon the best for the community, and provide that service to the community as our priority number one. Goal one would be clearly to prevent the 911 call. Naturally, sometimes we can't, and thus we then have to respond to the 911 call. And being able to respond to that with adequate resources is our prime component that we have to take care of.
So I'm hearing communications, which is important, and we have a lot of new tools that we've implemented, from the morning emails to the MCEN, the alerts we get to our phones, a new radio modernization system that we're getting ready to go to council and continue that program. And you brought up about the affiliation, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they don't know the difference between patch, badge, what it reads on the side of the ambulance, if they're even reading that. All they know is that a professional, whether they're compensated or not, is showing up. And that hits on the point of how well we're working together. Last night, it was a fairly busy night, had a little bit of snow come in. And
that wasn't snow. Come on, you're,
yeah,
from,
you're
from Pittsburgh.
right,
That's
right.
not snow.
It wasn't even cold, but ran a couple calls, several calls with 28. Captain Browning ran a call, EMS call with him that we were fueling right by the Giant and the new EMOC, and it was seamless. I had that comfort level, everybody shaking hands, patting each other on the back, and that's about leadership and communicating your message, which was the same message as your predecessors.
And that's the thing that people see, but at the same time they don't see. When we get attaboys, we get attaboys all the time for people who've done their job, and they always do their job good. And somebody says, thank you for coming to my house, taking care of us. And they may catch a name or two of the crew. Ultimately, usually there's more than 3, 4, 5 people on the crew, sometimes more. And when you put that together in an attaboy or an acknowledgement, it's almost always career and volunteer personnel on that list, because 2 crews, 2 units equates to a combination of career and volunteer personnel. And as you said, Mrs. Smith has no knowledge of the difference. She wants a professional, and she wants quality care in a timely fashion. And we always treat our patients like they're our loved ones, or how we would like our loved ones treated, because it will be your loved one at some days being treated by one of your coworkers.
Absolutely.
So, no, absolutely the component. So, you wanted to talk about physical fitness.
Yeah, well, you said preventing the 911 call. So there's a crisis in the fire service throughout the United States is preventing the 911 call for us. We know the chances of fatality or injury on a fire ground generally is going to have to do with coronary artery disease. And we have, I think, a great team built at Fromm's, and Dr. Captain is very attentive. She briefed us at our quarterly briefing about some new testing and some new ideas, and I took her up on that. I spent the $99 and I had the calcium intake testing done, and I'm pleased to say I got a healthy ticker. But how can we, as the fire service, use the chief and the volunteer association in cooperation, because the IFF has spearheaded an initiative for the last 15 plus years on physical fitness and preventing the 911 calls. I call it for us. What can we do to get some more funding, to get some more equipment, and to get the word out there that, hey, we want you to take this time? Because let's note, you've done a fantastic job personally. I've noticed that you've lost some weight. I see you out there working and eating differently. So what can we do to help our sisters and brothers improve their health?
Clearly, the element of focus to your health. We have to be able to be ready for the call, and being ready is mental, physical, then we deal with education and skills. The men and women of the department need to be focusing on their health and be able to understand that this job will detrimentally impact our health. We don't know a lot about what we're exposed to, and it'll only come through time that we learn more and more about the increased cancers, the increased exposures that we're dealing with. There's no doubt that the fire service and the EMS service career has an impact on the provider's health. And if you know that from the front, you can start to take preventative or counter actions to that, and clearly being able to engage with the general health guidance of an hour of physical fitness activity 3 to 4 days a week. If it's your duty night, if it's your standby period, if it's your work day, the work sites have great capabilities.
Yes.
Robert Ford, Irwin Light as the 2 leads in that activity, they do a great job of ensuring that the equipment's there, the equipment's maintained, and through funding sources, ensuring that we have proper equipment. And we have a lot of space limitations in some of our work sites. We would like to get more equipment into some of the places, but we just don't have the space, and it's a constant battle of, can I put another piece of equipment in there, or is there no room, or what do I have to take out? But from the perspective of the LFRD members, the rec centers are always open to members of the LFRDs. If your duty night is once a week, and you may not live near your LFRD station, but you still may be able to engage with one of the rec centers throughout the county.
Yes.
Always ensure that you have that rec badge and that rec department access configured. It's a simple request through the DVS and Volunteer Division Services, but always ensure that you use those resources, because as a part of MCFRS, Rec Center access is open to all members of
free.
MCU. Exactly.
And that's a contractual benefit that we negotiated.
So always got to ensure that our people are using the PT equipment available. Maybe it's not at the firehouse, it's maybe the other facilities. But always ensure that you're using it, getting that hour in 3 to 4 days a week, and ensuring that you have the preventative work towards physical fitness impacts. It's eat healthy. Yes, our careers are not time friendly, and we usually eat poorly because we're eating on the run or we're interrupted in meals, and then we do eat a lot of not the best choices of food. So if you're coming in for a duty night, prepare for and bring things with you. Or as a duty shift or duty night crew, plan for and have the good choices available so that you can grab and go. Bring it with you, have it as part of your early shopping activities, but always have the better choices there. Still eat the good stuff that you like, but balance it out with more of the good and better stuff so that you can offset that. You mentioned Franz and Jill. No doubt that they are great subject matter experts, and Jill is pushing forward in great leaps and bounds on cardiovascular disease. You talked about the calcium scoring CT. It's an opportunity that's out there. It helps measure the coronary risk for calcium buildup. I myself had it as well. I was very glad to have a 0 score.
Me too.
In that. But take the opportunity of going to Franz for your physical. Always ensure that you have the understanding that Franz is there to support you and give you a high level of care. She is going to, or Dr. Sylvester, or the other folks at Franz, they're going to look at you with a special understanding that you are a firefighter rescue professional and how that impacts your health, and maybe what your elevated risk is for a general person is multiplied because of our profession. And that may be why she's asking for a referral. Right. She's working on some things with Johns Hopkins Healthcare to do some additional cardiac activities, or refer other people for additional cardiac things. Because, yes, our risks are higher, but our folks need to understand Franz is an ally. From the folks with DVS, ensure that you take that physical when Ruthie Wills from Alan Hines' shop schedules that for you. Get there, engage with that, understand and use those resources that the Franz provides, because they are great occupational medical specialists in our industry. And it's a great opportunity that we do provide our personnel.
So let's expand on that. Franz is there to help and not to hinder, because even when it was just career side getting these physicals, there was a concern on both sides that this was a way to eliminate participation, either of older people, people who...
But the most important thing is to understand is that the industry is also changing.
Sure.
Science is changing, and the
NFPA
standard is changing. And we're in the process, and we have a meeting scheduled in the upcoming weeks to move forward with the adoption of the new medical standard policy, so the updated version of the NFPA standard, because it's more understanding, inclusive, and provides more, I don't want to use the word accommodation, because that is clearly a medical and legal term, but it provides more flexibility to deal with medical conditions than the prior standard did. And we don't want to go into details of people and what happened in the components, but that new standard will allow for people who have medical conditions that are properly managed to still engage in our service.
Which is awesome.
It's clearly a high point of the NFPA standards there as a core baseline and guidance, and then we utilize the capabilities of Dr. Captain, Dr. Sylvester, and Dr. Stewart from Meritocracy as the core professionals to understand. Because Dr. Stewart is a great benefit and a member of the NFPA committee that writes the standard.
He wrote it. He's in Fairfax. We've met with him several times over the years, getting through, moving from the 03 standards up to the 15 standards. One thing you touched upon is about referrals that Dr. Cappan may give, and it's important for our members to know that we cover that cost, and we just got several members that had to go through some extensive testing, and Chief Hine got the bills paid very quickly, and we got our people riding and safely riding.
And that's
under
covered
control.
through the CBA or the directly negotiated
Correct.
agreement, and additional
policy.
components beyond that are covered. So
Yes.
don't worry about the expenses components.
Right,
of those.
we've got that covered for them.
Yep. So you asked me the question of what do I see for the volunteer staffing in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes.
Outline what your question is there.
Well, we can talk about the early days in our service when we heard a lot of talk about new stations, and the newest station at the time was Station 31, which is at the current location of 32, the Quonset hut. Prior to that, we hadn't opened any new stations, and now in the last 8-10 years, we've opened 5. And the master plan is going through some adoption processes now, and there's some vision for some newer stations, some additional stations. So what is your vision for continuing this combination service that we have for staffing? Do you see increased opportunities in new stations? Do you see changing or increased opportunities in some of our current stations for staffing for volunteers?
The core thing we have to focus on is maintaining the staffing that the LFRDs have today, and expanding and growing those duty crews so that there's the proper personnel qualified. Each volunteer riding assignment, so each, as I would use the term, button seat, that is asked of the LFRD to cover nights and weekends. And there's 32 positions that are in the core requirement. 32 positions staffed during the day right now, that at 5 o'clock are the day workers leave and are the requirement of the LFRD members to staff. Each of those 32 positions requires roughly 11 qualified people to fill. 7 nights a week, Saturday and Sunday day side, so that's 9 periods, plus or minus 1 or 2 people for relief and rotation and activities to fill it. So that's like 11 people for every duty assignment. 32 positions, 11 people to fill those 32 positions. The numbers grow exponentially when you look at it. And I commend the LFRDs that are filling those butts in seats and doing that. They are doing a good job, and they continuously strive to bring in more people, be able to fill those positions, and expand upon that. And those are minimum staffing positions. We know that we want 4 personnel on every special service. We would prefer to have 5 personnel on special services. We still have 6 engine companies with only 3 person staffing. So the number between what we staff minimally at 304 to what we would like to staff is about 340. So there's another 30-some positions that need to be filled before we're at the desired staffing level of 4 personnel per every heavy unit, 2 personnel per every ambulance, and ideally 3 personnel, on medic units or chase cars, and however we apply that. There's a lot of opportunity there, and there's those core LFRDs that already have those duty requirements. They need to continue that, expand that, and sustain that. And then in each of those stations, they can grow that another spot or 2 because of the requirements or the desires to get from minimum to desired staffing. And then I look at a second tier of LFRDs that already are doing services expansions, or they're doing an additional ambulance a couple of nights a week. We have Gaithersburg, Damascus, Hillendale, Glen Echo, Silver Spring, Germantown, Tacoma Park. They're doing an additional ambulance crew, or they're coming in and staffing in the ambulance a couple nights a week, and the career personnel are moving from the ambulance over to be the 4th and 5th on the engine company or the special services. I want those organizations to cement that from 3 and 4 nights a week to 5 and 7 nights a week. Because, as I say, our number is 304, but truthfully, if we had desired staffing on everything, on all the 52 major pieces of apparatus and then all of the 42 or so EMS units, we'd be about 340, and that's a big difference. And we know we have the need for those resources, those vehicles. We need to have the staffing on those vehicles, and that's where the next 3 to 5 years, as those organizations, those LFRDs that already have that staffing requirement, cement that and expand that, because they are heavily engaged with that. the second tier of the LFRDs that are doing a couple nights a week, grow that from 3 nights a week to 4 nights a week, and
Yes.
6 nights a week, and 7 nights a week. And as that grows, that enables us to provide more services, because every ambulance gives us capacity to support those 70,000 patients that we transported last year. And when we have ambulance 708 Charlie, or ambulance 729, or ambulance 713, and upgrade medic 711, or ALS 711 goes in service, all of that is an enhancement to the base capabilities that we start off with every day.
Yes.
And that provides us that ability to be flexible as an organization to engage in one of those 116,000 calls. So that's clearly what the focus is from Chief Hine and Division of Volunteer and Community Services, as well as myself, and in conjunction with the association and President Goodlow, has to what can be done to cement what's there and solidify the LFRDs that are working progressively towards expanding services in their communities. And we're doing a good job. Got to work progressively through it, and there's a lot of resources available to help with that. And it's set baselines, as I said earlier, set goals, SMART goals, and then measure them in 6-month increments, as an example, so that you can say, yep, we went from 4 nights a week to 5 nights a week over a year-long period of time. That's realistic, because you added, usually that means 3 or 4 more fully qualified driver or aid personnel that you added to your organization to go from 4 nights a week to 5 nights a week. As we see with each of the volunteer class graduations, plenty of people graduating classes,
Yes.
plenty of people processing through. Keeping them still engaged, retaining them for 3 or 5 years after initial training is a challenge that your organization and all of the LFRDs are working through, and that enables us to grow the service. So that's what I'd like to see in the next 3 to 5 years.
So that ties us into the recruiting that we're working very hard on, and the
keeping
vision.
healthy, recruiting people, providing the services, and then answering those 911 calls, because it's only going to go up. And if we keep up the same rate of rise, we're going to be over 121,000 this year in calendar year 16. So.
And then our members know that their association is there for them, and any difficulties they may have, from the day we recruit them till the day we present them with their first LoSAP check. So the vision has been set from President Goodlow, who we should mention is now serving in her 13th year. Right. And the first female president, and as she jokes, took us 75 years to get it right.
And Marcine's on her way to mending and getting back healthy, and
yes,
clearly is a monument in the Montgomery County Fire Rescue Service, let alone Montgomery County volunteer fire rescue elements.
Absolutely.
As well as well-known across the state. So I really appreciate you coming today, Eric.
Thank you, Chief.
Components and the questions, because it is a part of our organization that some people aren't aware of, and this is our opportunity to bring those things together. So
they should know the relationships that we have and how hard we work together.
Yep. So it's cold outside. There's no doubt that we are in wintertime. As we talked about, we had a little bit of snow last night. We're going to be experiencing probably another 2 months, plus or minus, of cold weather. Ensure that you're ready for that. Come to work, come to your standby night with the right stuff, right clothing, the ability to change clothes. Come to the standby night ready to engage. Make sure your apparatus, your stations, your facilities are ready. Understand that we have to answer that 911 call no matter if it's 5-degree wind chill or 55 degrees and sunny. Next month, I'll have Adam Nichols from Station 31 to join me at the table. And I still have a full plate of guests lined up through July. So as soon as my plate gets low, I'll make a solicitation to get more invitees to come join me at the table. So till next month, be safe, and at the moment, try to stay warm. Take care.